Hi, it's Tim Hagen from Progress Coaching, and welcome to another episode of Coaching Conversations. And I wanted to make you aware of something very cool that we're doing on a subscription basis, and we'll put a link in each one of our episodes. But every Wednesday, we're going to be doing what we call an audio podcast workshop. That workshop will be roughly about 14 to maybe 20 minutes per episode, with each month having a theme from a coaching model, using feedback strategically, to coaching self-awareness, and so on. So if you could, look in the body or in the content description of each episode, and you will see a link where you can join this subscription. These are literally 4 workshops every month, teaching specific strategies to address a particular area of workplace coaching, as it relates, again, to things like awareness, motivation, teamwork, and what have you. Here's the cool thing. It's only $10 per month, and each month you will get a handout that we will follow along with. So we also give you a tool for you to take notes as we go through each episode. We hope you'll check it out.
Coach to the person. Don't just coach to the issue. Let me explain what I mean. Recently, I had a client who was talking to me about one of his employees, and it's in the credit union world, and he kept expressing his frustration. And as he went on, I could tell he kept getting revved up. And about halfway through, I stopped him and I said, "Can I ask you a question?" He said, "Sure." I said, "Are you really frustrated with me?" He said, "No, why would I be frustrated with you?" I said, "You seem so agitated right now, and forgive me, maybe I'm mistaken." He said, No, it's not you. It's the employee I'm coaching. I get so frustrated." And he went right back into his emotional state. And I smiled at him again. He looked back at me and he said, "That's not good, is it?" And I said, "Well, if I misunderstood your frustration and where it was directed, I'm wondering if your employee feels the same way." He stopped, he thought, and I said, "Look, I know you want to address the issue. I know you want to fix what's wrong. I want you to become aware as best you can of how you're coming off." So if we have someone who's got a negative attitude and we coach that person with a negative attitude, what's going to happen? He said, "Well, it's crazy. Nothing. It'll be counterproductive." I said, "Right." He said, "Is that what I'm doing?" I said, "I don't think you're literally doing it, but I'm wondering if you're not aware of how you're coming off." Because I literally, as you were talking, I thought, is he agitated with me? And really what I was doing was building self-awareness. I was trying to get him to become aware that his approach was so fixated on this issue. Now, this particular employee was late getting back to people. He coined this employee, and I hear this all the time, "He just doesn't seem to care." And I said, "What do you mean he doesn't care?" "Well, you can tell he just doesn't care." I said, "Well, how do you know he doesn't care?" He said, "Well, you can just tell." I said, "Wait a minute. You just told me you knew he didn't care. How do you know he doesn't care?" "Well, I literally don't know he cares." And we started to laugh at one point, and I said, "Do you see what you're kind of doing?" He said, "Oh." I said, "Give me some feedback." And he said, "I'm labeling." I said, "Yeah. You don't know if this person doesn't care. You don't literally know that unless you ask the person." So as our conversation went on, I asked a couple other questions. I said, "What do you enjoy about this person?" Complete silence. Nothing was coming back. I said, "What do you have in common with this person?" Silence. Nothing was coming back. I said, "So I want to state something back, and I'm about to use something called reflective coaching." I said, "I don't want you to respond. I'm entering that coaching session with you. I'm your employee. And I know we're going to talk about one thing, the area where I'm not performing. So will I leave inspired, motivated, frustrated, filled with anxiety? What will happen?" So don't answer. As I walk into that room, what do I know that we're going to talk about? I gave the manager a few minutes. I let him think about it. I said, "So what goes through your mind?" After about, I'd say about 4 to 5 minutes, and that's a short reflective time session, he said, "I would be royally frustrated." I said, "Yeah, I would too." He said, what should I do? I said, don't talk about the lack of communication. And the area that he was coaching was proactive communication, getting back to people in a timely manner, which, by the way, was not defined well. And I said, I want you to just to know this person, get to know them on their level. About 3 weeks went by, and the manager called me and said, you're not going to believe this. Our coaching sessions are unbelievably better. Now, I don't know if they're unbelievably better. And I said, why? He said, we actually share a couple hobbies together. And our conversations have gotten better. And all of a sudden the employee said, I want to get back to my challenges with proactive communication. Guess who's driving the conversation? See, I think sometimes when we coach to the issue, to the circumstance, and it's not registering or it's not resonating or we're not having the results that we desire, our focus becomes that issue or circumstance. And when we get agitated, our agitation, our frustration, our blood pressure becomes the focal point of the people that we're coaching. So now our relationship with our manager and coach becomes what? Frustration. He or she's always frustrated with me. But sometimes I'm not saying we need to become friends with our employees. I'm not saying with our coaching clients we need to become best friends. I do think we need to get to know our people. I do think we need to understand what they're going through. I do think where there's commonality, there's better communication. I do think when we understand where they're coming from and what they're trying to achieve from a goal perspective, then our only frame of reference with each other isn't the issue or circumstance. The conversation widens. It gives you more apparatus, more tools to converse. Here's the funny thing. They both shared a love of race car driving. Now, I know nothing about race car driving, but I do know this. You can use something called parallel coaching. So I asked the manager, I said, I would imagine you understand a lot about pit stops. He said, well, sure. I said, I know nothing. Use parallel coaching. So we sat down with this employee and he said, if people were relaxed in terms of the pit crew, when the car comes in and they change tires or put in gas or change the oil during a race, what if they just didn't hurry and they had no sense of urgency? What would happen? The employee immediately jumps in. Oh, it would be a disaster. And he goes on and on. The manager said, I'm wondering what we can do to pick up the speed of our pit stops. And all of a sudden the employee goes, oh, wow, that really hit home. See, here's the funny thing. I'm not saying you have to find a hobby, but we learned some information. I worked with the manager of doing what? Crafting what we call a parallel coaching conversation. 4 weeks go by. They're dramatically having better coaching sessions. The employee is becoming much more proactive. So remember, if you only coach to the issue or circumstance, you can sometimes devalue the person. Remember, coach to the person who can change the circumstance and situation. Good luck. Thank you for listening to another episode of Coaching Conversations by Tim Hagen and Progress Coaching. Now, our company is always coming out with new and innovative solutions to help leaders coach their employees. And recently, we just created a new service called Coach to You, where leaders can pick and choose topics and assign 7 to 21-day programs for employees to learn and, more importantly, apply actions and then reflect and share what they're going to do going forward as a result of the learning. It's called Coach to You. We're literally bringing coaching to your employees. If you're intrigued, we'll have a link in each one of our episodes where you can get more information. And again, thank you so much for listening to another episode.